Hey, it's Joey Balladonna here from Anthrax, and this is SAGAS.
Well,
Oh, oh, look, this is a big one.
I didn't break out and join the podcast today.
It is now time for Devil's Advocate. Same time, same place, awesome.
What's going on, everybody? This is Corbin, the Serpent Tongue Skipwith.
This is Ren the Berserker Marvel, and this is
SAGAS. Yep.
Saga is nice.
And we have very special guests with us today.
Hi, I'm Brad Lehman with Maylene and the Sons of Disaster.
Thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Hey, I'm pleasure to be here.
Nice. So today for the audience, we'll be listening to the album behind me, IV or 4. So the questions I want to start off with is, what was the production and process like of this record compared to the other records before this?
Well, this one we were. I'll be honest with you, we were in a pretty bad spot going into this record. We had a guitar player leave, we had our drummer quit right before we went into the studio. We had written 20 different kind of rough idea songs, front to back, but with some vocal melodies. And then we all flew into Nashville minus a drummer and trying to piece together, trying to make a record. And so we had the first 3 records had all been done with the same producer, Elgin. And then this one, we were going to try to do something different. So we ended up going with Brian Virtue and Rob Graves. And we had kind of been pushed in that direction by not really an ultimatum, but so much of, you guys can't continue doing what you're doing if you're going to move forward or just survive. You have to get to the next level. And at this point, it was like, we need to get you guys towards radio because you can't continue doing what you're doing. So we needed to go with someone with a little bit more broader, I guess, audience. And we thought we were going to be able to maintain a lot of the Maylene sound while incorporating some sort of, I don't know, whatever could get us on radio, I guess, the sounds and all that sort of stuff that you're told. And then, we ended up going to Nashville, had pre-production for like 2 weeks, ended up scrapping pretty much every song that we had came in with and started rewriting from scratch in about 2 weeks. So it was a pretty intense process. And, we were in Nashville for, I want to say like 2.5 months, all living in a 1-bedroom apartment. And it was really rough. I mean, we were living off like $15 a day or something like that, eating mac and cheese and, really doing it rough. So, everything was such a whirlwind by the time we got done. And the whole time there was problems between management, the label, the producers. So it wasn't really this like, you hear people talking about, they go to Rick Rubin and he finds their inner artist in them and they put out this record that fully encompasses them as a person. This was not that. This was a like smash and grab, experience. By the time we left Nashville, we had no idea, what the record actually sounded like because we still hadn't heard mixes. We were, Dallas, when he tracked, we weren't allowed in the studio while he was doing vocals. So it was all like really a bizarre experience. And the end result is, a record that, I've said this before, and again, I like the record, but you end up with this record that has a song for everyone, but an album for nobody, because it's each song kind of jumps around for these different styles and how we were writing. And I think as these producers were trying to throw shotgun blasts at different audiences, and in retrospect, when I first heard the mix, we all sat around and go, well, where's the screaming? Like, we're a hardcore band. Like, where did that go? And I think there's some great great songs. We had some good songwriters and stuff that helped out with the record, but you know, we thought it'd be the right step in a direction, and definitely the fans have felt otherwise. Like, when we play these songs live, all four, you get a different response, or there's a different fan group. And since we toured on it, you see the fans that you pick up along the way in these different genres, the more radios, as we did like more radio friendly tours with bands like 10 Years and stuff, which we love doing. And you pick up these fans that you wouldn't ever got, which is great. But at the same time, with our song we just released, we're trying to right our ship with what we actually think the band should sound like. And I feel like that's part of a thing that a lot of bands go through, especially when you've been established for a couple of years. Is you start trying to like, you listen to the wrong people, and then you just, everyone has a say of where you should go. And then it really just comes down to where you think you should go as a band, or someone who's been in the band the longest. Because you really, regardless of, the fans know you second, but you guys, people in the band know themselves the most. And then you have these other people that are making commissions and percentages and stuff, and they all have a different dog in the fight than we do, because we also learned it's one thing to record a record. It's another thing to go out and support it for, 2-3 years after that. So that might have been more of a earful than you want to know about that record, but
no, that was great.
Where we're at.
Yeah, I think you've answered all of our questions now.
Oh, okay. See you guys.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, it is a very different perspective on what we would have thought the process would have been. Because it is regarded as an immense album. He's done absolutely tremendous work as performers on the album, as well as all the other business dealings behind it. But I was going to ask you in more depth what it was like working with Brian Virtue, because he's worked with a lot of our favorite bands, like Deftones, Chevelle, and Audio Slave. The actual process in the studio. How did you enjoy aspects of it? Let's say.
So Brian is an interesting guy. He's a tremendous engineer. He can get sounds and tones and everything that you want. Those are when you hear those records that he's done, those amazing crystal sounding guitars that are also perfectly distorted. Brian does that. Not a people person, not, and there's a thing that like a lot of producers, they kind of love the psychology playing God factor of it. And he definitely really enjoyed like pitting us against each other and stirring the pot and doing all these things where, you hear producers doing that make, platinum records. Well, this wasn't a platinum record. So he really just kind of tortured us for, a couple months. And, I have no ill will for Brian because he's a hilarious guy. Me and him got along fairly well. But, I think we were only supposed to be in the studio for a month, and it turned into like 2 months, 2.5 months. So I think there was also the point where everyone agreed to do this project, especially someone like Brian and Rob Graves, who don't need to be fucking with us in their terms. Like, they don't need the money. They don't need the accolades. This was I think I could do something cool with this project, or I think, I have some time in my schedule. And then we showed up all scrappy and starving, and they were like, oh boy, basically what went through, like, how can we make a great record into how do I get these guys out of my studio?
Nice.
Well, like I have to say,
and in the future, I would have Brian mix anything in a second. I wouldn't spend 2 months with him because, we would kill each other.
I was just gonna say, and I know this is probably like as you mentioned in the first question that you answered. I know this isn't probably the reception you'd want to hear from the band, considering what you want the sound to be originally about the regarding the band. But when I was listening to this album, like every time I replayed it, it just sounded like a magical kind of a relaxing album to me. And I know that's not probably the reception you needed, but every time I played it on my headphones, I was just put in this trance, like, you know, lightning in a bottle. It kind of was, to me personally, it kind of sounded like a perfect mix between the indie artist Sufjan Stevens and Weezer. That's what sounded to me.
Oh,
It just
wow.
sounded like,
Thank you. I love both those artists.
yeah. So to me, it was just this mesh of just, you know, perfect melodies, amazing rocking tunes. It was just like I said, the perfect mix. So, you know, when I hear you say all the, let's just say, controversy behind it and all the struggles, it's just amazing to me because it came out so amazing, and it's been on my replay list all week because of it.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. You know, like, you know, the first two, you know, the first Maylene record, basically front to back hardcore record. Second record, little more singing, but again, mostly hardcore record. Third record, that's where it's a little bit more rock sounding, a little more, it almost has an 80s, early 90s rock vibe to it. And then the fourth record, we were at that point where we could be like, okay, we can take this into the southern rock side and a little less hardcore. And you know, the way the overall record sounds, it makes a point front to back. It touches on some of the heavier sides. It touches on some of the softer songs, obviously, but you know, we we went a little too far, I think, at least with the, how do I say it? The sonic enjoyment that we were having from some sounds versus what the, you know, thematic theme was. You know, there was a little less diesel exhaust and a little more you know, creamy smoothie tones or something like that, you know. So yeah, I think the cohesive piece, and as a front to back album, it's all there. And again, I'm only speaking as someone who's been in the band, and I really, you know, I enjoy that people like it and listen to it. You know, it's just, we've gotten so much, you know, hate for this record, and I'm overly, I guess, defensive about it right off the bat. But it's really like, we think it's a good album, and we think it makes sense in the lineage. But I can also see where, like, if you heard this record and it turns this way, you're like, well, what's next? Is this going to be a Wilco album on the fifth record? So it was like, that's why we're trying to point it back to be like, we're still a hardcore band down at heart. So
Yeah.
But thank you. I mean, I'd like to take some credit for the way it sounds, but that's all, you know, that's all Rob and Brian.
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking about sounds and your input on this, I love hearing about instruments that were used on particular records. Could you tell us a bit about your rig, what bass you were playing or what amps or you were using?
That was a Fender P-Bass Deluxe, the upgrade. It's from like 97, 98, and then into a Sans amp, like a basic the Tech 21 Sans amp, into SVT 810, you know, like good old guitar. And then at the time, Chad Huff was our guitar player, and his side hustle was flipping gear. So he showed up to the studio with like just the tastiest of the taste. He had like a diesel VH4, you know, a couple Mesa heads, and he, you know, a couple bougie pedals, and so he just had a field day getting the world's most perfect tone. And then Jake would just roll in with whatever was lying around and just rip the greasiest, you know, slide solo you ever heard. So it was an interesting mix of complete and total gearheads, and then, you know, a guy who it's all in his fingers, you know. So it was an interesting mix, and Brian and Rob were definitely into it. Like, they weren't just like, yeah, whatever, hit track. You know, they really got in there and kind of made sure the tones got made the right way, I guess. Which is, you know, for a gear nerd, I love sitting and getting tones for half a day or something. You know, like, that's not a pain in the ass. I love like hearing where the sound will go.
Nice. That's what I was kind of imagining. That's the kind of rig you had, because there's a lovely fat sound off the bass, and I'm gonna put that down to you and the playing and the instruments that you chose for the record, you know. But
Well, thank you. It's
yeah,
it's
of
all
course.
Fender basses and
Yeah.
and Pro Tools editing. That's
Nice. Absolutely.
yeah.
So the one thing that has struck my curiosity ever since listening to this album is the album cover. What can you tell me about that? Because it looks like a Charles Manson fucking like cult photo. Like, but then the sound doesn't match it. It's really interesting to
No.
look into the backstory.
Well, we got in trouble for making this photo. Yeah, we Dallas kind of had this vision that he had worked up, and the whole Ma Barker theme carries out through the first three records, and then this was kind of supposed to be like the next round of the Ma Barker. I don't know if you know that story, but it's a crime family, and she was the crime boss, and she had all of her sons that would rob banks and do terrible things. So this was supposed to be kind of a continuation as the next round of forgotten children or criminal children coming through. So I think it was Ryan Russell who shot the photo. I could be wrong, but he did all the other photos, and we were in. This was shot like outside of like a housing cul-de-sac suburb in like rural Alabama. Like this was in like a cute family neighborhood. And somehow I believe the photographer reached out to four people with children and was just like, hey, can we use your kids for a photo and throw bags over their head? And they were like, sure. So, we went and did this photo, and we thought it was awesome. And then we turned it into the label, and they were just like, really, guys? Like this is what you want to like go with? And so I think there was, some issues with distribution with some of those like Christian-y bookstores and stuff like that. And, at that time we were just, we did the heaviest murder Charles Manson cover and for our softest record, so I don't know if that was us overcompensating or something like that, but
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say, was this album chosen before you heard the mixing?
No, I believe it came after. I think it just might have been a like maybe we'll act tough and then see if it transfers over into what people are hearing or something like that. But no, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, because I love the look of it. It looks like a 70s record, and I think it's really cool. I think it falls in line with the rest of them. And then sonically, it sounds more modern. So,
Yeah. I mean,
if we misled any of you guys out there, I'm sorry. If we bait and switched you,
yeah, man, it worked. It worked. I love the Southern twist, and I saw somewhere Dallas was somebody told Dallas that he was finally playing the music he should have been playing for a long time. It kind of suited him to have the Southern twist in the music. I was an Under Oath fan going back a long time, and when I heard about the new group, and then when people were telling me about this new album and the direction, I was a bit kind of like, that sounds interesting. I'm wondering how it's going to go. And do you know what? I absolutely love it. It turned out really, really well. I don't know where these people are giving you stick over this, because it's a killer album, like absolutely killer album. There's so many cool nuances, and like I said, I love a good hard hitting rock track with southern flavors and just riffs and screaming, and then bringing it down with the slide guitar stuff. It's just, oh man, it's sweet. Plus the amazing fat bass lines on it. It's sick, man. So
thank you.
Yeah, there is a link there between the album cover and it's really funny, because I was going to ask that same question about the cover. I just thought it was brilliant. I thought it was a genius move to have that as the cover for this record.
Well, thanks. And there's a weird, when I say this isn't a heavy record, it's all relative, because I came up in a hardcore scene. So hardcore to me is bands like Converge, the Dillinger Escape Plan, The Locust. Like that's what heavy sounds to me. And then if you go to someone who's only kind of listened to like the radio side of things, Slipknot's the heaviest thing they've ever heard, you know. And for Slipknot, they can have a couple softer songs because the predominance is so heavy, or such a onslaught of percussion and sounds and that sort of stuff. So it's interesting because, you know, we had done some radio band tours going into the studio. And so there's also that take of like, in when you're working with a radio producer, this was heavy to him. And for me, that's like, well, that Dillinger Escape Plan's heavy. So this doesn't sound like a building being deconstructed with a, you know, a wrecking ball. This sounds like something that would be on the like Slipknot record or something heavier. So it's a interesting take of like, I think we had a bunch of crusty old hardcore dudes that were just like, you know, if I can't bloody my fists to this but it's over, this doesn't do anything for me. If I'm not, you know, taking out drywall, what's this been all about?
Fucking hell. So I'm curious, was there any song or songs on this album that were, for any reason in particular, harder to make than others?
I think some of the like songs like Faith Healer and I'm trying to think of the other one. There was a couple songs that we had worked with a different producer on prior to going in the studio, and we really liked them. They came out really good. But then switching over to a different producer, we were trying to figure out how to keep the same sort of songwriting energy and what we liked about it, but then applying it into this other format. And it took some kind of back and forth, but I think it ended up there. You know, Faith Healer, I think, is the one, at least to me, that kind of sticks out as like, again, I like that song. I have writing credit on it. It just seems, and that song has a lot of that's about a specific person in the Christian hardcore scene. I won't say who, but you know, I think there's a lot of meaning behind it, and for it being kind of such a calling someone out song, it came out rather nice. That's like my mom's favorite song. And I'm like, that is a straight dig at a human, Mom. I'm glad you liked our insult.
Yeah. I love that. I love when a you know, a parent or a mom has an influence on a song or a particular song that she likes. My mother likes my music when I don't curse in it. As long as I don't curse in it, she's happy. She's like, "Oh no, you're cursing in that one again."
That's awesome. Yeah, I wouldn't be where I am without the blind encouragement of my parents for good or bad, you know.
That's it. Yeah,
just going, there you go. Good job, Brad. Good job. Making your two little songs.
Have you actually a favorite song from the record, actually?
You know, I think as a band, the Cats Walk was kind of, that came out the most, probably how we would have liked the entire record to sound. You know, it's like super, it's loose, it's kind of out of control at times. Like they really captured this. That was the other thing, is like, you see the band live and there's something there, you know. Like, I'm not the original bass player. The first time I saw Mainly in the Sons of Disaster was on Warped Tour 2008 or something like that, where I just like was watching from side stage because I was working for a different band. And I remember going, holy shit, this is the best band on Warped Tour. Not because they brought all the production or like did all the cheesy, what the fuck's up, Warped Tour? It was just like, these guys don't give a fuck. But yet it comes off like to where the audience is having such a good time. They're also afraid of the band that's on stage, but everyone's still like, there's this cool, you know, symbiotic relationship between the audience and the band. And I really love that. And so there's always been, when I joined the band, that side I wanted to at least preserve. And then seeing the band live and then hearing them on the record, you try to transfer that feeling over. And I think, when you get into the beautiful sounding little bits of recording, you can lose some of the fierceness of the live sound. And we didn't track this record live. It was all, take by take. So it's hard to keep that intensity. And with Cats Walk, I feel like they really got that, like, it sounds wild, and but yet it sounds sonically pleasing. And like, that song's tuned to B, like, we're chugging in that one.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. In Dead We Dream, I thought was a closer, directional point for where we were headed. But there was, I'm trying to remember the name of the other one. But there's, like, there's a lot of those songs that they hit in a certain way. But I feel like Cats Walk was probably the one that I was just like, yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Nice.
I tried to push it towards a single, and they were just like, nah, guys.
Quick side note: when I saw the band, I saw the band a few years ago, Sleeping with Sirens, when they came to Australia, and they were a lot heavier live than what I heard them on studio. I was like, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the band, but they're an American band, and they're
the great band.
They're a lot like Kellen Quinn was screaming a lot more live than on record. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, I didn't care. I liked it, but it was different. And I was like, I wonder why it's not on record this heavy. But
I like it when, that happens. It's better that way than the other way, where you have a heavy band sounding like the softest, softest sheet. The first time I ever saw, I'm a big Death from Above 1979 fan. And the first time I saw them was at a festival, and they're kind of like the sexy electro pop band or whatever. And when I saw them, they're a two-piece. They go on stage at this big festival. The drummer's wearing a bandana across his face, like, and he's a singer, like hardcore style, and he screamed the entire set. And at first I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I was just like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Like, the audience kind of hates this right now, but if this is for me, Brad loves it.
Nice.
So mainly when you see us live, we try to be, I feel like we're trying to be way too heavy. I was playing out of 2 810s at one point just to rattle everything.
Nice.
I love it. I was gonna say, whose idea was it to get on with Danny Trio from the actor for the music video Open Your Eyes?
So that was an interesting discussion, and it was a really small window before he just exploded as a movie star and person. So we had, we were put out, we recorded the record, and we had to do a video. And at that time, from when you record a record to when it comes out, you have months. So we were out kind of like supporting the record. Our drummer had quit before we went into the studio, so we had to, we didn't have a drummer. We used the studio drummer for that record. It's Miles McPherson, killer drummer. He played for Paramore, Kelly Clarkson, all these different people. But we didn't have a drummer. He's like, yeah, I ain't going on the road with you. I'm Nashville drummer. I got a gig on Monday, so we didn't have a drummer. We had a guy that was kind of filling in, and then we were having problems with our one guitar player. So we were in this position where we're like, do we do a video with only 5 band members, or three band members, and just have a shadow guy? And when you see the drummer, it's just hands, like. we were like, do we do that? And then we were just like, that's, we've already had a lot of lineup changes. We were just like, we just didn't have it in us to like, and my pet peeve, and I don't know where it came from. I hate watching band people act poorly in their music video. Like, let actors be actors, let musicians be musicians. Don't it seems real cheesy when like you're cutting to the playing shots and then you're cutting to the like acting shots, and it's like acting is a skill. You're not just gonna pick it up because the camera's on you. It just comes off as cheesy to me. And I'm not attacking anyone who acts in their music video, but the thought was, well, we don't have the right amount of members. Let's just see who's available, actor wise, and base a video around them and go from there. And we got a list of all these actors that were in our range that we could afford, because we essentially took all the money that we were going to spend in our flights to get out to LA to shoot the video on whatever we could afford in that price range. So 5 people's flights, equals this amount of money. This is how much we had to spend. So there is a list, and there's actually like, it's one of those things where you go, oh, I recognize that guy, but you like, they're not a household name, but you'd be like, that guy's from this movie, or like, I think one of the guys was like, I'm only doing this because I heard Buffalo Bob put a firecracker up your bunghole. Woo-ah, from Joe Dirt. That guy was on the list. So like, I remember being like, I want that guy. I want the firecracker in the bunghole guy. But there, somehow it was just like, on that list was like, we might be able to get Danny Trejo. And then we all had seen Machete and all the things, but he was kind of not a household name before his taco stand and all these other things. So we were like, let's see what we could do. And then management had a very complicated back and forth with his people to get him on board. And it kind of turned into like, all right, thanks for the money. We'll let you know when he's available. And then it was just like, last second, all right, he's available. And they kind of assembled the crew. And yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, he saves that video. It's a weird video, but he really like, it's got Danny Trejo in it.
Yeah. It's class. He did obviously a great job, but I liked the storyline to it. It was a nice twist in it, and it was a good show.
I'm not a huge horror fan, especially like kind of campy horror. So like, I remember when I first saw it, because there's an extended version, and I was like, huh, that's real violent. No, this is real bloody. Like, and it was interesting because there was, again, when we turned in the video, they were like, guys, like, what, like, where do you think we're gonna submit this to? We're like, that's your problem.
Fucking hell. Look,
yeah.
So there's between me and Ren, there's just one more thing. There's just one more thing I like to ask you. I know you're pressed for time and everything, and we've asked our questions. So there's just one thing I want to ask you, and because you took the time out to be our guest here on SAGAS, we would like you to choose the album that we review next week.
The album you review next week?
Yep. So next episode.
Oh man, like
no pressure.
like any artist?
Anything
or
rock or metal related.
Oh man! All right, let me. I got to get their name right. And this is a. I randomly found this band. I don't know if you've heard of them. And I don't totally know how to pronounce it. Harry Carey for the Sky. The art of samurai stabbing yourself, however you pronounce it. HARAKIRI for the Sky. I randomly found this record and I fucking loved it. It's called Arson, came out in 2018. And it's just like that like lower screaming, little like tremolo picking at times guitars, but has a right kind of like ambient sort of thing. And it was, it was like I was listening to one band and then it suggested this one, and I just stumbled upon it. And anyone I've ever talked to hasn't ever heard of this band, and I'm just like, this band fucking rips. Like, I don't even know if it's in English. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like so heavy it doesn't even matter. I don't know what they're saying at all, but it's just like I want to like steal their tones, but we'll end up with a grindcore record next, which may not be a bad thing, but it's
Nice.
yeah, that's been my like my jammer lately for some reason, but
Nice.
I'm a big fan of that. I mean, we played a show in Tampa before Furnace Fest recently, so it was like a month ago with Gideon, and their new record is like the heaviest shit. Just, I mean, I've been a fan, but then when I heard the newer stuff, it was just like so brutal. And I googled the review, and it said like Gideon drops Jesus, puts out their heaviest record yet. Because they stopped being Christian, and it's the heaviest record. And we played a show with them, and we haven't been a band for 6 years or whatever because Dallas and his accident. So we're also all older. The scene's older. So like going into these shows, we're like, well, our average fan base is in their 30s, some of them in their 40s. But it's not going to be the same as far as moshing and crowd surfing. And Gideon played right before us, and I popped my head out, and it looked like a fucking war zone, like blood, like people just like holding their heads, stumbling out of the pit, and I was just like, still alive, like it's still kids still got it. So
fucking hell. Well,
yeah.
Thank you for the album recommendation. As you know, we always make our guests choose. So we'll be doing it next week. Thank you again for your time. This is probably one of the best feature episodes we've had so far. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys working with the time zone.
And I'll make sure to get this to you as soon as possible. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your time, and hope you have a good day.
Awesome. Take it easy.
Go on.
Bye, guys.